PointyStarVio here. Today we're going to be talking about deck ratios. Everyone knows that Konami creates ban lists. The ban list has different aspects to it, such as certain cards get limited, certain cards get semi-limited, and certain cards get unlimited from the ban list. As to our ban list not being infinitely long, people do have lots and lots and lots of cards to choose from. But if you have 400 million cards, why do some players only choose to play one of in certain cards and three of other cards? Such as I may only play one Mystical Space Typhoon in a deck, but that guy over there might play three. Now, this video is going to explain why people play each amount of each card, such as why a player might play only one Mystical Space Typhoon, or why a player might play only 2 copies of a field spell or something. I am hoping to explain why all this happens throughout the video. This is kind of in response to a lot of hate I've been getting, because I said in my response to the Midolce deck that topped a while ago, that I thought that you should only be playing 2 Messenger Lotto. This will explain my reasoning behind that, simply because the way I saw Messenger Lotto was, as I'll just explain it later in this video. Without further ado, let's start. Now, we're going to start out, why would you play a card at 3? The reasons why you would play a card at 3. First of all, you want to either have it always in your deck or always in your hand. If you're playing it at 3, I can almost guarantee you'll be having this card in your hand. Yes, there's 40 cards in your deck, and if you're playing, let's just say, 10 cards at 3, you're not going to be having all 10 of those cards in your hand. But if you're playing a card at 3, the chances of you seeing it in your opening hand or seeing it within the first 5 turns of the game is incredibly high, especially because the chances of you getting certain cards and multiples is different based on how you shuffle and such, and so your odds should be higher if you're running more copies of it. The other thing is, you want to have it in your deck. Now, if you're running 3 copies, you really want it in your deck, but you also have to remember that if you're running 3 copies, it also has to have the maximum amount of use, not only in your deck, but in your hand, because you have to account for the fact that you will have it not only in your deck, but you will be almost guaranteeing that you'll have 1 copy in your hand, as I just stated. Now, my current hate on that deck was based off of the fact that he did not have the most amount of use in your hand. Summoning a monster with 1600 attack and no effect is not the best when you're facing a lot of the cards in the current meta, especially with the fact that Fire Hand can crash into it, suicide, and pop another card. Especially, even if you got the field spell, you can crash Fire Hand into it and blow him up. Now, that card had that issue. But the player at the deck, really quick, was using different cards as discard outlets, and that was the reason why Messenger Lotto was okay. And I can almost guarantee that a lot of games he cited out the 3rd Messenger Lotto for other cards, because the Messenger Lotto did nothing on its own. So that is the reason why I believe he was playing it at 3. Now, we're going to go on to why you would play a card at 2. The reason behind playing a card at 2 is either you like the card and you want to see it but you don't need it, or you need to have it in your deck but you don't want to draw it. Now, I'm going to reword this a little bit and kind of go a little bit more in depth into each portion. First of all, why would you play 2? So let's say I'm using a field spell. Why would I want to use 2 copies of the field spell as opposed to 3 copies of the field spell? Well, with Ghost Tricks, they have to run 3 copies of their field spell, because the whole deck is based around the field spell. Now, why would you need to play 2 then? 2 of a field spell is a lot different, because what you do with 2 is it's saying that it's good for the deck, but the deck does not revolve around it. Now, Ghost Tricks, on the other hand, they need to have the field spell to work. But a deck, let's say, like Noble Knights, their field spell is an okay card. Meaning, what it does for the deck is it constantly puts cards in the graveyard for each card. That's kind of the extent of what it does. And then you've got decks like Midolce's, which the field spell is really good for them because it gives them a huge boost, making the weak monsters into bigger monsters. But at the same time, you do not absolutely need the field spell for the deck to be good, because the deck has the queen. Since you're not going to want to only play 1, since you're going to want to be able to get the effect off or potentially draw it once in a while, and you want to have 1 in the deck to search for off the Messenger Lotto, I feel like 2 is for cards that you want to see, but you don't need to see that often. Another card that I'm kind of trying that is, I've been looking at my Sylvan deck and realizing why I played 2 of certain cards and why I did not play 3. Currently, I am playing 2 Cherub Sprout, and the reason is because I really like the effect but I do not like drawing it. I was thinking of playing 3 because I was really liking the effect and how I could special summon cards like Copy Plant, special summon cards like the Spore, and just get cards out of my deck really fast, even just special summon itself. But in the end I realized running 3 means I'm going to draw it, and you do not want to draw him. So I was putting him at 2 instead, because I would not draw him as often and I'll be guaranteed to almost always have one in the deck. That was the reasoning behind that. Now, the last thing I have not talked about, or spoken about, weird, is why would you play a card at 1? Now, if you're running a card at 3, it's because you want to either always be having it either in your hand or in your deck. If you're playing it at 2, you'd rather have it in your deck, but drawing it is okay for you. Now, if you're running it at 1, the reason why you're running it at 1 is it's either limited or you do not want to see it, and it's just there for bonus, like adding. In Sylvan's, I am currently playing 1 copy of the field spell. Just like I'm thinking of switching Noble Knights to 1 copy of the field spell. The reason is, this card is no longer important for the deck, and it's no longer pushing the deck, but it's just a card that helps the deck run. It sort of becomes more of a tech card, because instead of the deck being revolved around me being able to constantly get things off, like the Ghost Tricks, constantly get my cards summoned and stuff from direct attacks, or Madolche's running 2 copies of their field spell, just trying to constantly get cards recycled and being able to do that. You're only using 1 copy of this card simply because you do not need it to function in the deck. It becomes sort of like an extra step that is helpful, but it's not necessary. Other cards that I believe can be ran at 1 is something similar like Mystical Space Typhoon. You can run 1 Mystical Space Typhoon because you do not need the Mystical Space Typhoon when you have so many cards such as the Mire Mellow, who you can special summon to get the effect. You have the card like the Ice Hand or even the Fire Fist Gorilla. These cards all help get rid of spell cards and trap cards, and so you do not need the mandatory 3 MST that everyone's been playing for so long. So MST can be played at 1, 2, or 3, just based off of this little system that I am saying here. Now, you play 1 of a card not because it's bad, but because you do not need to see it as often, or that you do not need it to function in a completely normal situation. When I'm playing some of my decks, some people are currently playing in some of their builds of some of their decks, they're only using, let's say, 1 Sylvan Princess route because they do not need her to function, but for them, her effect is she can summon herself as a level 8 or 7, and that's just convenient for certain situations. That is just something that's kind of good. I can do that in certain situations. I'm playing more because my build utilizes the fact that she's a level 1 monster that can tribute to excavate herself and restack my deck. Now, that is showing that I have multiple uses and I almost always want to have her either in my hand or in my deck. Those other players are not using her that way. They're using her as the extra or addition to their deck, almost as just a filler to fill up the 40 card slot, but this is just an additional step to try and get some of their combos or plays off. With the card combo, the 2 card combo that you have of Lone Fire for Dandy, the Soul Charge combo. Now, this combo is not a bad combo, I can tell you that right now, but they only run 1 copy of the Cherry Motto because they do not want to draw it, and he's there only for the combo as an extra step. And you are not always going to be getting this 2 card Quasar combo off, because if you draw certain cards or certain numbers of cards, you won't be able to get it off. But if you are only running 1 Cherry Motto, and you're running 3 copies of the Soul Charge and 2 copies of the Lone Fire, your chances of getting that combo are higher because you will not have certain cards in your hand at the same time as you will have other cards. That is why I personally believe it is, and how I've asked other people and been trying to get feedback on this video. I've been trying to post this video for a while, ever since I made that video originally, and there are reasons behind why you play 1, 2, and 3 of a card, and I'm not sure everybody knows it. A lot of people right now are doing a lot of net decking, or just copying the deck that's topping. There are you could go to a tournament and see 25 of the exact same deck, and 3 of them could be top tables and the other ones could not. And the thing is, a lot of people do not know why they're only running 1 card, 2 cards, or 3 cards of certain cards, such as some people right now playing only 2 Mire Mellow while some are playing 3. This deck, and all these decks, and this entire system is based around odds when you're drawing things and how much you need to draw or use the card in your deck. I hope this was informative. Tell me if you think that this is wrong, or if you think that there's different systems in the comment section below. I really love to hear what you guys think about this stuff, and it's really, really interesting to me. Thank you for watching, and as always, just have a wonderful day. Yeah.
I'm waking up.